everyone. Today I wanted to make a video that I thought would be really useful for people who are either victims of abuse, wanting to understand victims of abuse, or just wanting to learn more about domestic abuse and narcissism in general. Now, what I'm going to cover in this video is kind of high-level overviews. We'll go into a little bit of detail, but it's not going to be, a 5-hour video where we can delve into the right level of detail. What I'll cover is types of abuse, so the different types of abuse that there are, and then tools and techniques that abusers use against their victims so you can understand those. I have written 3 books on the topic. All 3 are available on Amazon. I will link them in the description below. If you want to get into more detail, read about all of these things in more detail, read my story because that's my story as a victim of domestic abuse as well, and also read interviews with other survivors of domestic abuse, male and female. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description below, but you can go and grab those on Amazon if you want to. So before we dive in, if you can please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, share it around. It really helps it to get into the hands of people who need it. So if you can do that, that would be great. Thank you. Right. So let's start with types of abuse. Now, the reason it's important to go through types of abuse, and I think the point I'm about to make is actually more important for men than women, because a lot of men I speak to, and myself included, don't understand that they're being abused until it becomes physical. So until they're getting hit. And there's often a lot of different types of abuse that aren't physical. So let's go through them. I'll put the list up on the screen and we can have a look at it and then go through them one by one. So let's start with emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is kind of the foundation usually, where your abuser will try and change the way you feel. So with emotional abuse, so they'll try and make you feel worse about yourself. They'll make you lower your self-esteem. They'll make you question yourself. It's really trying to affect how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the situation. So, it's nothing to do with physical. It's just to do with the way they break you down. It could be through criticism or something like that, but they will change the way you feel. Physical abuse, obviously, this is pretty self-explanatory. It's physical, so it could be hitting, punching, slapping, grabbing you, snatching things off you, anything that is physical abuse. Verbal abuse, again, fairly self-explanatory. It's, swearing at you, putting you down, calling you names, saying horrible things to you. So, you could be in a relationship where that happens all the time, but you're never getting hit, but you're still being abused. Psychological and mental abuse. So this is trying to change the way you think. So whereas emotional abuse changes the way you feel, this is trying to change the way you think. And this could be trying to make you doubt yourself, trying to make you think you're the problem. They use tools that will go into like gaslighting to do this. But if you think about that difference, that emotional abuse is trying to change the way you feel and mental abuse is trying to change the way you think. The last one I've included here is sexual abuse. And again, a lot of people think that this means, that you're being assaulted or molested, but it's not necessarily the case as well. It could be other things, like they say things to you about sex or sexually, or, talk about things or threaten you with things like that. So just anything around sex used that way is sexual abuse. So that's a very high-level overview of kind of some of the types of abuse, just to let you see that it's a bit more complex than just getting hit. So the main part I want to go into now is the tools and techniques that abusers use against you. And we're going to go into quite a lot here. And again, I'll put the list up and we can look at it as we go through it. But these are things they actually do. So I'll go through some of the top ones. There's obviously a lot more. And like I said, I go into these a lot more detail in my books, but you can find lots of stuff online about these as well. But let's go through a few of them. So love bombing. So what love bombing is at the beginning of the relationship, they really bomb you. They over the top presence, attention. When they meet your friends and family, they're really over the top, trying to win their affection. And this is so that they gain your trust faster. And you might find that in abusive relationships, you end up like moving in sooner, you get engaged sooner, you get pregnant sooner, things like that. but it's really just this like full on assault, bombing of love to get you hooked sooner. And then you'll see that'll soon fade away as other tools start coming into effect. Fear. Fear is an obvious one. The word I like to associate with this is if. So if you don't do this, I'm going to do this to you, or if you do this, I'm going to do this to you. So it's really you're scared, and it could be fear of being hit, physical abuse, but also fear of something happening, like not being able to see your children, or fear of having people told things about you, but it's just the fear and those threats kind of keep you in line, basically. Triangulation. Now, this is a complex tool of the abuser or narcissist, and it's basically where they introduce a third party into the relationship in some way, um, and it could be like an evil ex. So they could be telling you like, "Oh, my ex was so terrible. He or she did all these things to me, and they're so awful." And they do that to get your sympathy, because you then have a common enemy, and you'll think like, oh, it's terrible. And then also they can actually use that. If you see things that you don't like and they do something you don't like, they can pass it off as, oh, I'm sorry, my ex always made me do that, or it's because of trauma from my ex because they're so terrible. The other way they use triangulation is to introduce rivals as a third party. So um, if you're a guy and your abuser is a woman, they could be like, oh, well, so and so down the road makes more money than you, and he takes his family on holidays 5 times a year. He's better than you. And they use that rival to triangulate against, to try and drive you to do more for them. Term you'll hear often around abuse and narcissism is trauma bonding. So this is, it's like Stockholm syndrome. You form such an emotional bond from the trauma and the abuse that it's hard to let go. And you'll often see people, on social media or on forums or in domestic abuse support groups saying, "Oh, I miss them. I can't let go of them," or whatever. Even though this person's terrible and has done all these terrible things to you, it's because you're trauma bonded with them, and it's that kind of hook into you. Even though it's wrong, you're still linked to them in some way. Withholding is another tool and technique that abusers use. And this is, like the name says, they try and withhold things from you. It could be withholding affection, withholding money, withholding, sex, withholding anything that they can use against you to gain control over you. So you won't get the thing you're after unless you do as they say. Isolation is a huge one, and generally you'll find with abusive relationships this comes in early on and starts to build up as it goes. And this is where they just want to isolate you from people. They don't want you to have friends. They don't want you to see your family, because they don't want people that can see through their lies. They don't want people that you can talk to about problems, or people that might raise concerns. So they really try to isolate you. You'll see that maybe like on special occasions like Christmas or birthdays, you spend it with their family, not your family. You have less time with your friends, and again, it'll start off like, oh, it's normal. We're in a new relationship. You see me more, not your friends. But as you go, you'll realize that you're actually not seeing your friends anymore. You're not seeing your family anymore, and you're completely isolated. And that's exactly where they want you to be. Right. A huge one that I want to talk about here is financial control. So this is something that abusers love to do. They want to control all the finances. They want to control all the money. They want to keep money away from you. They want to have everything. So they might take your bank card away and you only have a bank card for them, and you have to ask for everything. They might demand that all the money gets paid into their account on payday or something like that. But they want to have that financial control on you. And this usually extends even if you get out of the relationship and moves into post-separation abuse. I won't talk about that today. I'll make a separate video on that because it's a whole nother topic altogether. But financial control is a huge one that's used often throughout abusive relationships. A term you'll hear a lot when discussing narcissism is gaslighting. So gaslighting is when someone tries to make you doubt your own mind, believe a kind of different reality. So, you might say to them, "I can't believe you said that thing to me. It really hurt me." And they'll be like, "I never said that." Or, maybe more subtle, maybe like oh, I was just joking when I said that. No, you're taking it too seriously. You're too sensitive. Or it'll get to the point where they will start turning and saying, oh, you said this to me, but you actually never said anything to them. But now they're trying to convince you that you did. And it ends up messing with your mind, and you can end up doubting yourself and thinking like, oh my God, I must have a problem because I don't remember saying those things or doing those things, but they're saying I did. And, a narcissist is very like insistent, and they can really try to drive that point home. So gaslighting is a huge tool that they use. Blame shifting. Something you'll learn, a narcissist is never wrong, ever. It's always someone else's fault. It's always someone else to blame, so they will blame shift the whole time. If they do something wrong, they'll try and make you take the blame, or they'll claim it was your fault, or I only did that because you made me do that. I reacted just how anyone would when they're treated the way you treat me. They can never be wrong, so the blame always has to be shifted to someone else. Preempting is a huge tool that they like to use. So a good example would be, let's say they hit you a few times and then they get in the car and they leave. They will immediately go to like your family's house or your friend's house or someone, and they will start telling them about how you just hit them and terrible, and this is what actually happened, and oh, they don't know what to do, and you're a monster. You'll then pick up the phone and maybe ring a friend and say, this just happened. But they've already been told by the abuser a different story. So they'll just think you're a liar because you've come after the fact and you're trying to say the same thing. So they will preempt everything like that. Children. Children, unfortunately, is a huge tool. For a narcissist, it is a pawn in their game. It's a tool in their toolkit. They care about themselves. They don't care about the children. So they will use children against you. If you've got a child with a narcissist, they will use that to the best available thing. Like, oh, if you don't do as I say, you're never going to see your children again. Or if you speak up about what I'm doing to you, your children get taken away and they won't have any parents. So really manipulative with the children. The final tool and technique I want to discuss is something that I call the sledgehammer. I've called it that because obviously it fits into a toolkit. It's a tool, but it's a big, big, massive thing. It's not like a, cunningly aimed tool like gaslighting or triangulation. This is just a big, absolute wallop with something hard, but they know exactly where to hit you with the sledgehammer. So it could be, an example might be that early on in your relationship, when you were opening up to them, you told them about something terrible that happened in your life, like maybe you were really badly bullied at school or something like that. They will then use that, but they'll use it and they say the most horrible, hurtful thing about it. Like I've heard people say to me, like, one of their parents has cancer and their abuser will say to them, like, I hope your mother dies of cancer or something like that. Really horrendous, really horrific things that they use. And they know exactly when to use them and they know exactly what to say to really like absolutely crush you. And because they have all this other control over you through all of these other tools, they know that they can do it and you're not going to be able to leave. So they know exactly when they can bring these tools out. So that's a very high level overview of kind of the types of abuse, tools and techniques. I would highly recommend reading books on the subject, watching more YouTube videos about each of these individual ones. I have made a series on my YouTube channel about a lot of these individual tools and techniques where it goes into more detail. But as a high level, I hope that gives you a good understanding of the types of abuse and the tools and techniques. You can use this to start researching more, but understand that these things are textbook. Anyone you talk to who's been in an abusive relationship, they can tell you, yes, all of these things happen, and yes, all of these types of abuse happened. It's not isolated to you. It's nothing personal against you. You should never blame yourself. Abusers and narcissists just all seem to know the same thing. They all seem to have the same tools. This is what they do. So learn more about it. I've written more in my books about how they were used against me, and there's examples of how they were used against other men and women, but also with exercises you can do to try and move on from these things, and also tips to get out of a relationship if this is happening to you. Like I said, all links that I've mentioned will be in the description of the video, so you can go get those. But I just hope this has been helpful for some people. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll put out more content like this, and just look after yourself and stay safe.